Series up, we were talking about how we're going to have to get into studying the deities of the underworld. So we're going to get into talking about the different deities. And remember when I started up, I told you that the deities and gods, that's only energies. That's only describing the principles of different energies. You understand? In order for us to be able to understand the vast cosmos, this is what our ancestors did. They studied the energies, and then they came up with different characteristics. That's how they turned into gods, you know, just to describe the characteristics of the energies, you know. And so we are going to get into that because that's a part of how we're going to begin to do some real ritualistic practices, because we need to identify with those energies. And if you were in the first series, and if you were in the first two of this series, you know, I got into explaining all of that through this book here, the Celestial Ship of the North. And in this book, Valencia Stratton, her first two chapters talks about the supremacy of that the Great Mother, and then she talks about the supremacy of the black people. See. And she was an astrologer that belonged to this secret astrological society. And when she wrote this book, they kicked her out. You know, this is what Bobby Hammond was telling me when he introduced this book to me, because she divulged too much information.
Society, Rosicrucian.
Yeah. What was that?
Was she belonged to Rosicrucian Society?
Yes, yeah, she was. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And she was kicked out because she divulged too much in here. In this, I started off giving you the connection between her and her son, her first son, who was called Set, who was later identified as the planetary Saturn. And I'm always trying to make our connection with Saturn, see. And as I go on and read the rest of this, I'll put some of it into form here. My objectives in these classes is to get you to understand the significance of energy management in your lives. When you overstand and understand the symbolic meanings that our ancestors knew instinctively, you are accessing the spiritual language of the cosmos. Get to know the message of the universe. You will get a picture of your role in the larger scheme of things. You can then respond to the energy rays of the universe, which is our spiritual guidance. Once you adjust your perspective to a universal view, you become a part of the fulfillment of the whole, which is God in uniqueness of you, with the power from within to create all that promotes the universal principles of righteousness. Now, you remember I started up telling you how all 12 signs of the zodiac exhibits one of the principles of righteousness, and that if you leave one of those principles out, you're an average entity. You're not whole, and you're going up against the grain of the energies of the universe, you know, and that's what caused the breakdown, the degradation. That's what the earth is undergoing right now. Mother Earth is in the process of becoming a sacred planet. That means she must become full and whole and exhibit all these principles of righteousness which stem from the universe. Once we arm ourselves with the tools necessary to tune into your spiritual self or your higher self, who will define these principles for you in your way that is personally for you, you have to trust in your spirit, for it will take you where you need to go. All we need to do at this point is to find ways to tune in. Keep our first eye open. They call it the third eye, but we call it the first eye. Okay? As well as other gifts of attunement that has been developed in your subconscious world. Everything happens for a reason, and now is the time to get with the spiritual flow. Learn how to stop resisting your powers. You do have them, just as our ancestors did. The more physical we became, the more we lost those wonderful gifts. Don't forget that everything works on the principle of duality, from opposite perspective, as above, so below. Subjective as well as objective. Anything that has a physical existence has a spiritual one also. And we need to be able to see things in both lights for the full meaning. We have to become whole. We've been operating half-mast. We've been operating on a physical level. We have been taught to ignore our spiritualness, okay? Up to this point, I have shown you our connection to the energy of Saturn, or Set, the first son of the Great Mother, the supreme energy. You know, our ancestors worshiped Saturn as the, not worship, I should say, observed Saturn as the supreme energy. It had all the names of the sun before the sun ever had it. It used to be at a close proximity to the earth, and that's when they call it the golden age, the golden reign of Saturn. And that's when they had all the gifts, you know. But as Saturn, you know, became the distant light in the sky, you know, that's how we became more physical. But that is the Christ principle that is spoke of. That is prophesied to return. And as Saturn's energy or reign returns, so will the reign of our power return. See? That's why our ancestors are coming back.
You know, could you explain that when you said that with the astrology signs, if we leave anything out, you know, we're not going to become...
We won't be whole, we won't be full. Like I said, each sign of the zodiac represents a principle of the laws of the universe. Okay? You have to bring, and we know that, okay, you know, a chart, got this circle.
Yes, Jabbar. Okay, I'm still in the level in second day here.
We learned in the last 2 lessons, right? And I told you I was going to stop using words. I'm going to start just using symbols because I want to appeal to your subconscious. You know, I want to move us to a symbolic, you know, area rather than a literal area. We've been too prone on the physical, so we got to start moving out of that.
Yeah.
So we know this is the first house. We know this is the house that Aries ruled. You know, then we have Taurus. We have Gemini. We have Cancer. We have Leo. We have Virgo. We have Libra. And we have Scorpio, Sagittarius, let's see, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Pisces means completion or whole. Okay? Aries is the principle of the warrior. It's ruled by the planet Mars, which is the energy of war. You know, and when we start getting into, you know, the ancient texts, you can equate that to like Horus. You know what I'm saying? We're going to try to make the connections from the planets to the deities that our ancient ancestors understood, and then to the energy. Remember, I told you that the planets represent what energy is influenced. The sign represents how or what method it's influencing. And the house represents where it's unfolding. You can look at this as the earth or an individual. You know, because we're just the form of Mother Earth. We're just the form of Mother Earth. See? So, this can be the earth, and this is the horizon line. Okay? And all of this is broken down into opposites. Everything is about balancing opposites. That's how you create, by balancing opposites. So, this is the sign of war, the planet of war. This is the energy of the warrior. So the first principle that we're looking at is Aries, which is the principle of the willingness, the spiritual warrior. Okay? That's what the Aries energy represents in that wholeness. Then we have Taurus. Taurus is the one that dictates what do we value. You know, what do we value morally and materialistically. This is what it is what we value in life. Our moral values. That's the second principle of righteousness. The third principle is the principle of understanding. That's what Gemini represents. You know, Gemini is the educator, the teacher, the communicator. That's where you get your reading, your writing. Everything about the earth is represented under one of these symbols. Then Cancer, the fourth sign. That's the principle of the nurturer. That's the one that makes our connection to the past, to our roots, our heritage, our mother. That's our mother energy. You know. Remember I said you're conceived through Aries, you take form or body, your body develops in Taurus, your mind, your mental capacity develops in Gemini, you're born through Cancer, the mother, that's the gateway. I read last week, the two gateways. Cancer is the gateway into this earthly plane. Capricorn, its opposite sign, is the gateway into the spiritual. See, that's another reason why Saturn is the supreme energy, because it rules the Capricorn energy. Okay? And then Leo, they connect Leo with the ego, and that is the identifier. That's the one that it also, Leo also indicates children. It's your creative energy, you know, and it's the children, it's the energy of the children, and the rulers, okay? So what we need to understand about putting all that together is that Leo is the identifier, the one that lets us recognize us as ourselves as the children of the Creator, or the creative forces of the universe. Then we have Virgo, that's the healer, health. Then you have Libra, that represents justice, fairness, and equality, especially in partnerships. Then you have Scorpio, that's the energy of bonding, coming together in joint efforts to make an impact. Then you have Sagittarius, spiritual wisdom, you know, the great expander. It's the philosophical meaning behind everything, you know, and that's ruled by Jupiter. Then you have Capricorn, that's the energy of sacrifice, of humbleness. Then you have Aquarius, that's the energy of humanity, you know, your humane feelings. And then Pisces, completion, that's the compassionate, you know, that's the one that says in order for us to become whole, we have to include everyone, you know, those that are in prison, those that are on drugs, those that, you know, are the outcasts of society. See? And what I'm saying here is that in order to be whole and full, each one of these 12 principles have to be enacted. And if you leave one of them out, you're still an aberrant entity. You're not full, you're not whole, you're not sacred. When you use all 12, that's what gives you your fullness, your wholeness, your sacredness.
That's more or less when they say holy, you become whole.
Absolutely, a holistic.
Yeah.
Right, you become whole, you become
You're
full.
energized by the circle.
You're using all your energies. We got all these energies in us. We identify, of course, with our sun sign, you know, but that's only a small fraction of what's going on. And the job of astrology is to give you a perspective on what energies you're focusing on and what energies, you know, you need to pull in to make yourself whole and full. We have to use all the energies. Sometimes it's not that easy because we want to use the energies that we're used to working with. But, you know, we need to learn how to integrate energies. Because remember, I'll say it, if I say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Balancing opposites is creative energy. Male, female, yin and the yang, positive, negative. Every time you put two opposites together, you create energy. That's creation. That's the creation process. That's why I say we are the gods, because we are the physical beings with the spiritual capabilities through the melanin. See? And that is bringing two opposites together, the physical and the spiritual, to make the whole. If you don't make it whole, it's not complete, it's not sacred, it's not spiritual. Okay? And those are the 12 principles. And if you leave one out, then you're going against the grain of the spiritual. You're still in that physical rotation. See? That's what I meant by that. I hope that answers your question. Okay. It says, up to this point, let me see, I have shown you the connection to the energy of Saturn or Set. And if you know any astrology, you know what Saturn always represents. Saturn represents the energy of restrictions, obstacles, limitations, oppression. Okay? Who does that describe as a people? It also represents the colors brown and dark brown. See? And then when we do start getting into the ancient deities and we start recognizing this is Set, you know, and you'll understand through its battle I think that's in here. It says, up to this point I have shown you our connection to the energy of Saturn or Set, the first son of the Great Mother, the supreme energy. Saturn was the creative energy of the earth. When Saturn reigned at close proximity to the earth, our ancestors had marvelous powers. It was known as the golden reign of Saturn. Telepathy, the power of the will of the mind. We could appear and disappear at will. But Saturn lost his rule. Some say to his son Jupiter. Some say through his battle with Osiris or Horus. All the reasons are only symbolic of the fact that he was put in exile, cast down, fell into flesh, but prophesied to return in full glory and power. This energy story is the same story as a nation of people, and we all know who that is. Saturn's return is predicated on our return, not the other way around. As I have said before, the spiritual does need a physical vehicle to operate through. I have also shown you that the white folks do understand, and they have been real busy for quite a while to continue their reign in this world. They have given us Zeus, or Jesus, to divert us, as well as many other emotional diversions. They are pimping that energy with a message of love to continue their empowerment. They have put their rituals right in our faces while turning us against the practice for ourselves, because they know that we are not seeing yet from the universal perspective. They have seduced us into participating in our own oppression. It would only have taken about 3 of us to undermine their halftime Super Bowl ritual. And then, one of the ladies called because when I showed it the last time I showed that Super Bowl ritual, and at the very end, when you saw Toni Braxton, she was standing up on the Mandela, and which is supposed to represent, the universe. She was the one that gave the final song in her white dress and the dove of peace behind her as she was singing, let's walk hand in hand and do this gate together, And they were talking about magic throughout this ritual. They had the Great Mother rising up out of the water. They had the drummers come out in realm hats, to direct the energies on what energy they wanted to empower. So at the very end of her song, she did a little motion with her head, sort of like that, like it is done, So we kind of discussed that in the class. And one of the ladies called me afterwards, and she wanted to know if Toni Braxton knew what she was doing, because she gave that signal as if to say it is done. And what I was telling her is that she may not have known on a conscious level, but her spirit knew what it was doing. She was in the spirit because she was performing a ritual. She may have consciously reasoned, I'm all that, and I'm here in front of the world, but it translated to her spirit that she would do what was necessary to prove her worth to these people who chose her for this endeavor. This is how our spirits work. It will produce for you the objective of your desire if you present the right tools to activate its participation. But it will show the true intent of the activator regardless of the consciousness of the participant. That is why it is so important to be in harmony with the universal powers, so that your powers are used for the good of the whole rather than self-grandizement. This is why we have undergone this alchemical process to harvest the powers that will reign in the powers of truth. Okay? In other words, like I told you again before, when the white man used his powers, he abused his powers, he screwed up the world. But if we abuse our powers, we can screw up the universe. That's why we had to undergo this alchemical process. So that when we do begin to reign in our glory, we will not abuse it and cause devastation throughout the universe. That's what this has all been about. See? So, what does astrology, where does astrology come into the mix of all this? Okay? It's the symbolic message from the universe. Understand these symbols and you will receive of the message of our ancestors. is called tuning in by any means necessary. Your response to these messages from the universe or our ancestors is your willful participation or spiritual purpose by you activating or recycling these energies. Now what I need to do is, what I want to do is discuss the homework assignment. What I had asked you guys to do was, I had told you how we had moved from the energy of Taurus, which is the energy of what we value. And I had told you that we were in a transformation period. The Earth was in a transformation period activated by, or signified by that fixed cross of August 11th, when all the planets were sitting in the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. And this signified the reversal of the energy rotation from the material to the spiritual. So, in other words, Mother Earth is regenerating or transforming or in a crucifixion process.
No, I want to ask you, since you say that the Earth is regenerating and white people are materialistic people, what's going to happen to them once, it becomes more spiritual?
And you can already see evidence of it. It's declining, it's a breakdown, it's a process. And anyone that stays on the material, path is going to feel the friction, of going up against the grain of this influx of the spiritual, So they're starting to experience a breakdown. Remember I told you the Taurus was the last leg of that fixed cross, and that was the physical, because each one, it started in Leo, which was the fire element. And we saw fiery breakdowns, we saw fiery things happen, that indicated the breakdown. Then the next fixed sign that the sun moved into was Scorpio. That's a water sign. So we saw a watery thing. That's when we started seeing the floods, And for us as people, it demonstrated as intense emotional, outbursts. You saw people going off in public, okay? And then it moved into Aquarius, which is the air sign, which denotes mental. Then we started seeing technological problems, and we started seeing, in nature, it came out as tornadoes, see? This is all showing a demonstration of the breakdown, see? Now the last leg was the Taurus energy, which is the earth sign, which indicates the physical breakdown. We started seeing more physical, we started seeing health problems, I told you Taurus represents money. Look, what has the stock market been doing? It's been plummeting, see? So you've been seeing a lot of physical ailments, a lot of physical devastation, see? So because this is the last leg. It takes about 2 or 3 months for that energy to completely unfold. So you're always going to see an overlap, As one was beginning, another one was still unfolding. So you're seeing a mixture of these things, So that's it, the material breakdown. Not only the white folks, the black folks that are not tuning in, because we talked about this in the last class. There was a time when the tornadoes were hitting all the white places, all the white, every time it was a tornado, you felt comfortable because it was hitting all the white areas. You know what I'm saying? I would just go to bed. It could be coming in toward me, but I'd go to bed. Wake up, sure enough, and then went out there and hit Marietta or Cobb County somewhere. But the last tornado, it hit a black town and it hit a white town. That was a signal. Now, see, this is what I mean by tuning in to the message from the universe. Understand that. It means that now it doesn't matter. It only matters about if you've got your energy right. If you are adjusting to that spiritual rotation, And if you're not, then you're going to reap the devastation also. And that's what's happening with us now while we're in this crucifixion process. It's a purging. This is what the fixed cross represents. It represents purging and suffering. In other words, it's going to purge out of us those things that will keep us from reaching the new paradigm that is very rapidly approaching. See? So those areas where you are continuing to go against the grain, those are where you're finding the friction at. That's where you're experiencing your breakdown. you know. Like I said, because of Taurus being the earth sign, most of us was having some physical problems. Some minor, some major. But everybody I talked to was having some physical problems. That was a purge. That's saying cleanse, you know. If you want to make it, you know, it's exposing our weakest area. So we can deal with it and move into this new paradigm. So anybody who doesn't adjust, you know, they're just going to continue to go against the grain. That's going to be a breakdown. And right now, it's being experienced on the physical level. You know, it's already went through all the other elements, and now it's at a physical level. See? So it says. So I'm saying, what does? So I was trying to see if anybody made any correlations between how the sun had moved from the energy of Taurus, which was about redefining our values, into the energy of Gemini, which is about coming to an understanding. Okay? So, have any of you noticed that? See, all I'm trying to do is get you attuned to what the energies are doing. See, by looking at this clock, as looking at the sun as the clock here. Now, yes.
I have a very question that's very deeply disturbing to me. And I want to know that since we have moved into the age of Aquarius, okay, when we were in Pisces and the spring equinox came in March, right? Because the equinox is always one sign behind, and as we in Aquarius now, does not that mean that the equinox has moved to February the 21st?
You know, you've done a lot of study on that, and so you probably do have some insights.
I just from observing that in February we did we had 80 degrees.
Right, well, you pointed that out before. Yeah, we do. I mean, it's like the weather. You can, if you'll notice the season, it's like we're in summer now. You know, it's like we're a month ahead. A month ahead. See, so that's what she's talking about. So. But you know what, there's still an overlap though. We're not completely in Aquarius yet. They say that it'll be another 150 years before we're completely in Aquarius.
I don't think so, but I believe we came in 1881 and we are already in.
Okay. So I know that's definitely the prominent energy right now as far as the planets go, because that's Uranus. And that's that's the evolutionary energy, you know, and that's what stage we're in right now. So, so nobody can give me any examples of redefining some values that may have come to some understanding as the sun went into the energy of Gemini? No?
Well, you know mine already.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You know, they say that, you know, white people, their population is decreasing, and the sun is killing them.
Right.
I think the sun be killing, I mean, you know.
Because they are so much more thoroughly going up against the grain, okay? Like I said, they are the physical people, you know, and they have had their physical reign, you know. Now the spiritual is taking prominence, so they have to take a back seat, you know what I'm saying? And they are going to want to hold on to the physical, because that is, you know, their forte, yeah. You know, so, but the more they cling to that, the more they're going to experience that breakdown. The more they're going to, you know, any one of us, if we continue to hold on to our physical path, you know, and not get in tune or get in flow with the spiritual energy, we're going to break down, you know. It's just that they're probably going to do it a lot faster, you know, because they're going to hang on to it a lot tougher. So they're going to resist it a lot harder, you know. But we can have the same fate if we continue. We can go down with the ship. You know what I'm saying? But you know that their reign is through. Okay, so yes.
Well, one thing that I just thought about just now, when you were talking last week and you were talking about us invoking certain energies and stuff like that, and they know about this stuff. Well, I had gone to church with a friend last weekend. Now, there was only like 6 people in the church, melanin people in the church, but the pastor was white. And he was saying, we can have more people in this church. If we just gave more energy to God, we could have more people would just be running in here because off of all of our energy. And I was saying to myself, okay, he's saying that he was saying we can have a whole bunch of miracles come, a whole bunch of miracles come, a whole bunch of what did he say? Supernatural things will start happening. I was like, no. He is saying that they were able to, if they really knew how to do it, they could invoke to have a lot of people come in this room. And they could have a real big, giant church. That's what he was really saying.
Right. See?
Do his energies, do the energies, evoking the energies?
Yeah, the energies, because see, the energies is really what we're talking about when we talk about the deities. You see what I'm saying? So, what they do is cloak it in the guise of, like I said, their god is Zeus, you know, the god of materialism and abundance. And they have cloaked that in Jesus. You know that.
Saying we can bring Jesus Christ right here. You just pray hard enough.
Right. And see, because we do have that power, we're putting our energies there. You know, we are empowering their deity, in a sense. You see what I'm saying? Your belief system. What we create, what we believe. You know, that's why I demonstrated that niggas thing. You know, which means King of Kings. You know, you look in any dictionary, N-E-G-U-S, it means King of Kings. But, you know, on the physical, you know, it's a derogatory term. Everything happens on its opposite, on the physical and the spiritual. But they have had us believing it in its derogatory sense, and that's what created that condition for us, because we believe that. But if we believe it as meaning King of Kings, we'll create that also. See? You know, the Matrix, that's what the movie The Matrix was trying to demonstrate. That we have allowed someone else to define our reality. You know, and and once they define our reality, we're putting our energies there. We are creating that reality. So we need to break out and come to a new understanding about who we really are. You know, that's what the spiritual information, the influx of that information, what our ancestors have been trying to tell us. And they've been trying to use any means necessary to get that message across to us. Like I said, your dreams, you know, your intuitions, your hunches, you know, all those things that we have, you know, been too preoccupied on a physical level to pay attention to is what now is going to start taking prominence, you know. So we have to tune into that, get our guidance, because that's nothing but our ancestors speaking to us and giving us the guidance for our own empowerment. You know, but like I said, they have put fear in us. They have given us this one God theory, you know. They're telling you that if you believe in what your ancestors believed in, you're pagan. You know, that's blasphemy. So we won't even entertain the idea of what our ancestors did to keep. They reigned, they ruled for thousands and thousands of years before Christianity or the white man ever crawled out of the cave. We had civilizations to rise and fall. So how are people going to come and tell you now that you shouldn't do what your ancestors did? That is wrong. That's how they're keeping us oppressed.
Thank you.
That's how they're keeping us grounded.
Away from our stuff.
Away from, and at the same time, they're using the hell out of it.
Yes, it used to be a phrase that was coined. The most segregated hour was on Sunday in church.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like have changed a whole lot now.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you see a lot of integrated congregations.
Congregations going on.
It's like they actively are going after, you know, pulling up into the.
They know what time it is. You know that when I started this book here demonstrates that I started up reading the melatonin thing. They know what time it is. Okay.
And that's the reason why they always want to unite with us too.
Absolutely. And now all of a sudden it's okay for these interracial relationships. Okay.
Mountain
right. You know, because they definitely need our womb sisters. So the first thing they want to do is denigrate our men. You know, it's criminal to be black. It's like we said, oh, but it's okay to be gay now. That's fine, but to be black is criminal. You know, they want to tear down every black male figure. This is what this Alameen thing is all about. This is what this, even your boy John Lewis, you know, he had to come down because he was a black male figure that was that was demonstrating too much of a leadership quality. They don't want us to see our men in that light. So tear it down, you know. And we have to understand why. It's because they know what time it is. They need our womb now. They need us to help them. They're not reproducing themselves. They're only reproducing, let's say, at a rate 1.5. You need to reproduce at least 2 in order to cover, you know, the both individuals. You have to have at least 2 babies in order to replace yourself. Okay, they're not reproducing at a rate that's replacing themselves. Where I told you I had I was listening to this study where they took and they projected for 100 years, you know, how many babies a white woman would have compared to how many babies a black woman would have. And they were saying like a black woman could, you know, if you go to Nigeria or Africa somewhere, they're saying the average is 7 kids, where they're like 1.5. And they followed this study, and after 100 years, the black woman had like 100,000 offspring, you know, where the white woman had 1 after 100 years. So what's going to happen? They're going to
die out.
But see, they don't have no intentions of dying out. What do they have to do? They have to decrease our population in order to survive. And that's where I come in with this book on melatonin. What is that?
Underneath that paper.
Yeah. This is a method.
But they even mentioned that in there. They said through genes and...
Yeah, to keep our legacy, our heritage, our legacy going. Okay? They weren't talking to us. You know, and then in the same sense, this is when I went on to read on how they can use these electromagnetic waves, you know, to cause problems with us, cancer, and that they can just emit these signals through our TV, through our own little appliances and things like that. You know, they can do that, and don't think they aren't doing it.
Do you think they are successful in reducing our population growth?
Oh, absolutely.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are many theories on what's going on in that sense. And if you do believe in the biblical passages, you know, it'll tell you there's only going to be a remnant. It's only going to be a remnant that survives, you know, and that survives this. Okay. So what do you think they're talking about? A remnant. You know, because the masses of us, the bulk of us, is not going to make it. Did you have a question?
No, when you say remnant, you meant the black people, right?
Yes, yes.
Now, a remnant, now, you say a remnant, you mean a remnant here or in Africa or just a remnant as a whole?
I'm talking earthly, okay?
Oh, wow. That's not much.
No. But, you know, we can get into some things about who these people are or where they are, you know, because I happen to believe that it is us, you know, those that had that they brought our ancestry over here, you know, those or that our ancestry that went through this oppression, you know, because I figured that is all part of the alchemy process, see, and the ancestors that were here already that they, you know, oppressed. So that is that alchemy process. That, you know, that's a part of that. You know, and those who survive that is the ones that will, you know, reign.
Okay, I'm just coming in at the tail end. Survive what, if you don't mind?
The alchemy process. The, you know, the many methods that they have used to reduce our population, because they're not recreating themselves, you know, so they have to, in order to survive, if they're not producing, then how are they going to survive if they don't decrease our population? You know, so I mean, if you really don't think, you got to know what time it is. You got to know what time it is.
So why don't they do like what they have done in the past? Probably start a war to decrease population. It's because of the weapons that they have now?
Well, see, you guys, the thing is that we're no longer in a physical battle. It's not about the physical anymore. They've already, you know, it's about a spiritual thing now.
Physical and high place.
Yes. You know, You know, that, you know, they've done everything they could, and it's worked. They gave us the Willie Lynch thing, okay? You know, and that worked for, you know, but the things that they have used are no longer working. You know, because now, as I said, the spiritual, we've gotten, you know, we're getting influx of the spiritual, so those physical means are no longer working. So they have to attack us now through the electromagnetic fields, because that is our power, the energies. They know this. So now the war has reached, you know, a level of spiritual. They went in, they raped the tombs of our ancestors. They've studied the DNA, the genetic material. You know, they understand. So now they know what they need to do in order to keep us from reaching our empowerment. They have to, you know, mix up those signals. They have to, you know, they have to divert us from accessing that spiritual energy. So it's moved to another level. It's moved from the physical to another level. They have to keep on improving ways, you know, to do it.
Would you say, because you keep saying that everything is happening on a dual principle.
Right.
So them being physical, on a physical level, could it be like, what she was talking about, could it be that although it is on a spiritual level, but while they're still operating on a physical level, they still keep us here because they need us to keep operating on that physical level?
Yeah, I mean, and well, those of us that are still, so okay, they have many methods. They have many means of using, you know, just like I said. Where do you think they're getting this melatonin from? Okay, that's one method. Another method is to use and pimp the energies, you know, for their own empowerment. That's another method. Another thing is, you know, they're killing us off. They got all kind of ways, you know. This is to mask them in any way, by any means necessary for them, okay? And those that survive are the ones that they continue to try to keep blind or fooled into participating in their mass rituals, you know. I mean, every time you celebrate their holidays, every time you participate on a mass level in the things that they, you know, celebrate, the Olympics, boy, that's one of the biggest rituals there ever is, you know, or ever was. See? And then we right up here, you know, empowering all of that, see? Why do you think they had, what's his name, Muhammad Ali, come out, you know, to light the torch, you know? Oh, this is not just, oh, we just suddenly like you guys, or we're, you know, we're giving homage to you guys. You know, they're energizing themselves. You know, you can argue the cloning, you know, the cloning that everybody says going on, you know, because they can't take our energy. Have you ever wondered why they freaked out because of Freaknik? You know, that was a nice event until they sent, you know, the bad element in there. They denigrated it, okay? But they could not stand. I remember just right up here in West End, on Friday nights, the young folks used to like to gather at the park. They would send helicopters, police cars to break that up because they can't take our collective energy.
And also with the Million Man March,
yeah,
they had to get out of town there.
They couldn't take it.
Take that massiveness of energy
right
amongst us.
You know, so that is the reason why they, they don't like us grouping up, because that's a devastating thing for them, because we send out these energies that is detrimental. We are opposites, you guys. They send out these energies that they can't withstand. So this is one of the reasons why they say the cloning is going on. That's the way, because once you've cloned someone, then you remove that energy, that principle, you know, and they can, you know, that's a way of removing that element that they can't deal with, and you know, without it being obvious, you know.
Now, who are they cloning? Aren't they cloning themselves? They're cloning themselves.
They call it walk-ins or something like that, you know, walk-ins, where you can just, you know, so. They clone themselves like Clinton, you know, I think it was Bobby that was saying that When you sing with the bulbous nose, the red nose, that's the real him. But when you sing with the nose that's not red, that's the clone one. Okay? The Pope, they were saying the Pope, how all of a sudden the Pope then lost some mole. So when they clone themselves, they keep their host, see. But when they clone us, they kill our host, see. So when they clone themselves, that's to have a double. To have somebody that can stand in, see. But when they clone us, they get rid of the host and use us for, you know, for other purposes. See, so believe me, this is a diabolical mind we're dealing with, and we best understand that. And if we stay in denial, we can stay in denial if we want to. You know what I'm saying? You know, because it's already been prophesied.
But they showing all of this stuff on TV.
It's so obvious. I mean, it's so obvious.
One day they got a show where the man is able to go back in time whenever he feels like it. And in all of these shows, the government is in charge of all of this stuff.
Yeah. And just like I said about Art Bell, you guys see he's no longer, he's gone.
And now they got this strange music that they play.
Yeah, he's gone. You know, he didn't book. He knows what time it is. You know. They said there's a crystal city right there in the heart of Africa, where you know, black folks, only white folks go. Only way you go there is as a servant. You know, they're to serve. You know, that's another thing they do with the clones. You know, so you don't have to believe this. I know it sounds unbelievable. I know it sounds, but I'm not the only one saying this. You know, I've got my information from spiritual. Inspiration, but also from other teachers, from books, so it's just not a theory of mine. I'm putting together different information from different sources, okay? Yes?
You saying it was already been prophesied by who?
A recurring prophecy. The recurring prophecy is that like I said, that's the Christ energy. The Christ or the Jesus that they look to return, that is still another story that they have taken from some of our ancient past, about how this Christ, like I read here about how Set or Saturn, when Saturn was at close proximity to the earth, our ancestors reigned with all these powers. And as he fell, we fell, but he's prophesied to return. And, this is the Christ prophecy that I'm talking about. But, separated from the Jesus story. But because that's just another story that they pimped from this story. See, that's the ancient texts or information or tombs that they went in and got that story from, and, polluted it, changed it enough to keep us for food, for their purposes. See? So, but every prophecy is the same prophecy. It's a recurring theme. It's always close. In the last series, I did, because we had, I could show tapes then. I could show video films, and we showed the movie Dark Crystal. I don't know how many of you seen Dark Crystal. It's a little animated story, but it's our story.
I saw it in 1982, and I thought it was because I took my grandson, and I thought it was just on purpose.
Yeah.
When you realize
they kill him. Yeah. It's nothing but our story. Look at it. And see, this is where they put the information. They'll put it in comic books. They'll put it where the intellectuals won't go. Cartoons. Yeah, cartoons. It's all in the movies, but you've got to have your first eye open to see the real deal. You got to be reading between the lines. Because they put it in the movies. That's why they put out the movie The Matrix. But you got to be able to understand. In The Matrix, they use the computer, but in real life, it's the subconscious. Okay? Because that's where our power comes from. So, they used the computer, but it was really the subconscious. You got to be able to make the jump as to what they're really symbolizing.
So when you go to the movies, you can't go in with the idea.
With the idea to being entertained, absolutely.
You should have your pad.
You should have your notebook and pad. This is why they put out the movie Mission to Mars. Come on. And let me tell you something. Even the conscious people sat there and laughed at the end of that movie because even the people that were non-conscious laughed at that movie because you're gonna put a face on Mars and you're gonna put a nose thinner than.
Wait a minute, now you didn't get the metaphysical meaning of that.
What's that?
They left that black man up there.
Yeah.
And they didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And he was the one who had to do that harming and go on his computer and realize that was strands of DNA. Music
right.
Out of to make that thing open up.
Open up, right.
And he was jet black.
Yeah, yep. And so I'm telling you,
I always have to take the black man.
They're putting it in our face.
Every time there's always a black man that got
black man that's got and even the movie Independence Day. You know, with Will Smith. Okay? You know what they're looking at? They have to have a black messiah.
But the black man didn't have the brains enough to figure out on the computer, but he would go in that ship and risk his life, you know.
Right.
What was that movie? Green Mile?
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but I heard that was, I meant to see that one.
About the brother that had some powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff is, what you have to do, like I said, and like they're talking about, that third eye, they're calling it the third eye, the first eye. This is what has to open now. This is what is opening now, see? And you have to look at things now, like I said, from a universal perspective. Stop looking at it from a literal, physical perspective, else you're going to miss the whole picture. Because they're putting it in our faces. And they're doing that purposely to gauge, who's conscious and who's not. They tell you, don't call into those radio programs, they want to know. They want to know who is, conscious enough to see what they really are putting out there. See? So they're master at diversion. They're master at diversion because they know wherever we put our energy is what we're empowering. So they're going to tell us to look over there when we should be looking over here.
They say right, you be going right.
Yeah, they say look up, you look down. We are opposites. Don't let anybody tell you we are the same because we're not. Yes.
Do you have any general thoughts on hip-hop culture? Because it seems to me it's very interesting when you see that we only represent 13% of the population here in America, but on MTV and the major consumers of black music are white people. The white people who watch MTV, they want to see us. So what are your general thoughts?
Oh, I mean, they're trying to emulate everything that we are. They want to replace us. They want to emulate everything. And they'll tell us, just like I said about this dual principle, everything happening as above, so below, on its opposite, see? So what they will do when we get into something, like the hip-hop or whatever, they're going to denigrate it. They're going to make it seem like it's bad. Something's wrong with us doing it, But at the same time, they're embracing it, They're trying to claim it, I showed another video, the last series, where they're actually mummifying themselves now. Right after the funeral service, they're wrapping them up in mummies. They're dogs, they're animals. They're putting themselves up in the mountains. What kind of message do you think they're trying to send out? Yeah, they're the ones. They're the point and say, we're the ones. They're emulating everything we do, and then they're going to try to claim it.
But that's their pattern.
Yeah, for themselves, At the same time, they went in there and raided and tore down, what our ancestors did. So anything that they do, and like...
Did you happen to catch that TV show the other night when they went was live and they were going into Egypt and into the caves? Did you happen to see that? It was on TV?
I didn't see that, no. Now, and I like to catch all of the... all that, because I like to videotape it, and use it, because I did show one where they were showing their little coat, and the woman, she was blonde, and she was representing ISIS. And then, of course they had their priest. The priestess was representing ISIS, she was blonde, but the priest, of course, was dark. He was dark. He was a white man, but he had dark hair. Everything about him was dark. You see. So You know what? It's not so much the details. It's not so much the literal meanings. It's the symbolism. It's the symbolic meanings, you guys. And they have understood this, you know. And this is what we need to understand. You have, you know, it's what it symbolizes. It's what it signals. It's what we have to tune into. You know, we're going to have to supersede the literal, because that is what has kept us grounded. That is what's kept us from accessing the fullness of the information. You know, we have narrowed our vision, you see. And so, you know, you don't have to look at every literal detail, but you can see what they're trying to say. Even in the movie The Matrix, you know, somebody said that was the best black movie that came out, because everybody in it, either they were black or they were dark.
Because they didn't understand the metaphysics.
They didn't understand the metaphysics. So it's what it symbolizes. You'll start seeing that when you see Will Smith, you know. And like another thing been telling my class is that when you're thinking individual, you're thinking on a physical level. When you're thinking collective, you're thinking on a spiritual level. So when they talk about Jesus, you know, we're not talking about one man coming to save the world. We're talking about a people. That story is a story of a people, not a man. And see, when they tell you, when they make you believe that's a story about a man, they are trivializing the impact of the significance of what it really represents. You know? So you can't think spiritual and think about an individual. You have to think about a collective. And that's what I'm telling you. When you look in the Bible and you see one word capitalized in one sentence, and the next thing you'll read down, you'll see the same word, but it's not capitalized. When there's not capitalized, they're talking about a physical, an individual. But when it's capitalized, they're talking spiritual. Then they're talking collective. See? You have to understand how to make that jump. You know, that's why it's so confusing. You know, because they're expressing the duality. What they're talking about. So that confuses you because you don't understand it. You're reading it, you know, I wonder why that's capitalized. Oh, well, you know, it don't mean nothing. It means something. Everything means something. Everything happens for a reason. You know, there's no such thing as coincidence. No such thing as coincidence. It's all about the energies. And it's all about directing those energies, you know. And these gods that they're talking about is nothing but a symbolic, you know, it's just a symbolic of a principle of energies. That's all it is. See? So, you know, we have to understand that. And we have to stop. We have to come up out of that physical, because like I said, if you continue to think on that level, you're going to continue to be confused, and you're not going to understand what the full significance of what is really happening, you know. So I want to quickly get to the homework assignment, although you guys aren't doing them anyway. But this one here, I'm going to give you something that is because this is the reason why I'm using astrology. It's not so much astrology, it's the symbolism that I want you to start understanding, you know. Because like I said, when you look at symbols, then it's a subconscious thing. You're not just thinking of one thing. You're thinking of a concept, you know. You can mark a symbol, and that brings a whole concept, you know. And so what I wanted to do was to try to get you acclimated. That's why I'm asking you to look at these energies and look what's unfolding in the world, you know, according to what the energies are. So what I want to do here is, it's called the mixing of elements, and this lesson is energy interactions, the mixing of elements and modes, equal interaction. Now I'm going to start with the fire sign of Aries. You know, Aries is the fire sign. It's a cardinal sign. Remember, we talked about, you know, the modes. And that's a cardinal sign. So this is the sign, the mode. Remember I told you there's three modes. There's the mutable, the fixed, and the cardinal. The mutable is what blends or adapts. The fixed is what sets and the cardinal is what leads. In other words, the cardinal initiates, the fixed will set that into motion, and the mutable will adapt it to the whole.
What are the four cardinal signs? What are they?
The four cardinal signs are Aries, which represents spring. It represents the equinoxes. Aries, which is spring. Cancer, which is summer. Libra, which is fall. And Capricorn, which is winter. Okay? And Aries is the fire sign. And remember when I told you the fire is for Mother Earth, but for us that means passion. Okay? So the fire sign of Aries, the mode is cardinal. And see, a lot of this is review, but it's at an angle. It's going to be at an angle, which we call a sextile. This is the angle with the other signs. And this is what produces certain reactions, in other words. The sextile is like at a 60-degree angle. You know, like two planets at a 60-degree angle is what you call a sextile. That demonstrates excitement, okay? So when you look at the sign of Aries, it's a fire sign in a cardinal mode, and it's in sextile with the two air signs. See? The two air signs is what the fire will be in sextile at a 60-degree angle with. So when you see two planets at a 60-degree angle, they're in excitement with each other. See? Yes.
How many signs are there?
There's three. There's three signs to each element. Fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And then the earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. The air signs, and see, when you're talking fire, I say you're talking passion. When you're talking earth, you're talking sensitivity. Okay? And then when you're talking air, you're talking mental or cerebral. When you see air signs, that's a mental sign. And that's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then the water is emotional. And the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Okay? Yes.
When you say the sextile for like Aries, the two air signs, that will be Aquarius and Gemini with
absolutely
a 60-degree?
Yeah, absolutely. There you see, that's what I want you to get. I want you to be able to picture that. That's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking the two Gemini. Uh-oh. It would be at a 60-degree angle with Gemini, and it also will be at a 60-degree angle with Aquarius. Now, can anybody tell me why we're not including Libra?
Because it's opposite.
Very good. Very good. This is the symbol for opposites. So it would be opposite to Libra. See? And remember, when you bring two opposites together, you create a whole. So we talked about Aries as the warrior, or the spiritual warrior, and its opposite Libra, which is the sign of peace. So that's how we get our fighting for justice. When you bring those two concepts, those two opposites together, you know, that's how you get fighting for justice. We can't use it. If we just use fighting on its own, you know, or if we're just too peaceful, that means we won't stand up for ourselves, see. So you have to bring the Libra with the Aries to say, you know, I will fight and stand up for myself. I'm not going to just totally be peaceful where people are just going to push me around, see. So if you use them on its own, it could be detrimental, but when you put the whole, balance those opposites, you get the full concept of what's going on here, see. And then there's another angle, it's called a trine, and that denotes harmony. So when you find the three planets that are trine, that's when they're in the same element. You know, when all the planets are in the three fire signs, they're at trine with one another. That produces harmony. That produces harmony. This is how you get to understand how the energies interact, you guys. You know. And you can go down the line with that. And then the next one would be Taurus. Taurus is a fixed sign. Taurus is in sextile with, would have to be two of the water signs. Because earth and water are the two that blends the best, and fire and air are the two that blends the best. You're going to find your opposite signs in the opposite element. This is fire, Aries is fire, Libra is air. See? Taurus is earth. So the opposite sign of Taurus is Scorpio. That's water. And they're in a sextile. That means it's in a sextile with the other two water signs, which would be Cancer and Pisces. See? And it's in its opposition with Scorpio. And it's at its trine, of course, with the other earth signs, Capricorn and Virgo. See? So when you see those three earth elements interacting together, then there's harmonious energy unfolding. You know, when you see this Taurus energy interacting with the Cancer and Pisces, then there's excitement produced in that interaction. And then when you see this Taurus energy interacting with the Scorpio energy, that's opposition. And here we have growth. Taurus represents growth, where Scorpio represents the death and rebirth. Okay, that's the regenerative process. And then we go down to Gemini, which is an air sign, and it's a mutable sign. It's a mutable sign, so it would be in sextile with, if it's an air sign, it'll be in sextile with two of the fire signs. You know which one that is? It probably would help to identify what's it in opposition with. It had to be a Sagittarius. Sagittarius. It's in opposition with Sagittarius. So what are the other two fire signs that it would be in excitement with?
Leo.
Aries and Leo.
You said excite. I thought the sextile would bring the excitement.
That's what I just said.
Okay, you said Aries. Oh, so you had an air sign in sextile. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, this air sign of Gemini, a mutable sign is in. Oh, and I forgot to mention the squares, the friction. Do you know what causes the friction?
That's what I want to ask.
Okay, it's when this is a mode. This is the mode cardinal. So when the same modes are in interaction with each other, then that's what produces the friction. That's a 90-degree angle. In other words, the cardinal signs of the zodiac, when they're interacting with each other, it's at a 90-degree angle, which produces friction. Okay, the mutables with each other, you know, the fixed with each other. That's why I'm always talking about that fixed cross of August the 11th, you guys. When all the planets were lined up in the 4 fixed signs, there was nothing going on there but oppositions and friction between the planets, demonstrating that regenerative period. The purging.
You said that, okay, going back down to the mutable, you connected that Gemini with that Sagittarius at the end. What was your last comment on that?
I don't know.
With the Gemini, and you said the opposite was Sagittarius?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, which is the fire. It's a fire sign.
And who is the sextile?
It's sextiles Aries and Leo.
That means it's excitable?
Yes, that means when it's interacting with those energies, it's an excitement. Yes.
Okay, when you say the friction, can you give me a little idea in a way, you know, like you said the mode of just any one of the signs, like, you know, I mean any one of the fixed, mutable, or cardinal signs, and give me an idea. Like I know in the cardinal signs you have like you said, initiators or leaders. I think of one having the energy of like Aries, the one. Let me see. Initiate. If you can, I'll let you say because I got these one.
Okay. And see, when I finish this, see, we're only going to have to do this 6 times. See? And all these will balance out. Yeah.
Okay.
See, so what you see here, see, because we've already got Aries and Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, because these are always going to be the opposite signs are always going to be in the same modes. Okay. And the opposite signs are always going to be in the opposite element. Like I said, fire and air, earth and water. Okay. So once you understand that, and this is what I'm trying to get you to see how they work with each other. You know, the air is going to work in excitement with the fire, unless it's in opposition to it. See, and the earth is going to work in opposition to the water, unless, you know, it's in sextile with it. You understand? You know, and all the modes are always going to be in friction with one another. You know, and that's why I keep talking about that fixed cross of August the 11th, that signal, that term of energy. And then we go down to Cancer, which is a cardinal sign, which demonstrates leadership qualities, initiates, and it's going to be in sextile with the earth signs, but it's in opposition with Capricorn. That's an earth sign. So the other 2 earth signs would be Taurus and Virgo. See? And of course it'll be in friction with the other cardinal signs, you know, which are, like I said, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. When those 4 interact, they're going to be, the mutables are, the fixed are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And then the mutables are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. That's all 12. Okay? And then we got the Leo, which is a fixed sign. It's going to be in opposition to Aquarius, an air sign. They're both fixed. So it's going to be in sextile with the other 2 air signs. Anybody tell me? Gemini?
Aquarius? Libra and Aquarius.
Okay.
What, excuse me, when she was asking that symbol next to the earth, what is that symbol?
Next to, oh, here, that's Capricorn.
Okay, yeah.
That's my symbol for Capricorn, the best I get to it. And then the last one we need to look at will be Virgo. Opposite Pisces, which is the water, earth and water. So that means it's going, and that's a beautiful sign. And it's going to be in sextile with
It's going to be Virgo.
Scorpio. It will be Cancer and Scorpio. So that represents the whole zodiac. See? And like I said, understand or overstand that this is how you see the interaction of energies. And this is how we get to once we understand how they interact, then we'll understand how to use that and make it work for us. Okay. Is it over? Oh, it's not? Okay. So, that's it. Now we can just go into question until the time, that is over. We can just find some questions and answers.
I'd like to throw something at the class if I may.
Okay.
While that person is bringing, let me go.
Oh, okay. Anybody got any questions?
Okay, in your birth chart, okay, if you have like certain houses where you don't have any planets at all, how does that affect you on a home?
I get that question asked a lot. I really do. just because there's no planet there, it doesn't mean that it's not having an effect on you. That's still energy in there. See, your houses, when I talk about your house cups, see, this is that August 11th fixed cross, you guys. I did a chart on that. You can see it's in a cross. All those planets are sitting in those fixed signs. And but if you look here, okay, this is the horizon line. This represents the horizon line. And like I said, whatever sign is rising over the horizon line at your time of birth, this represents your rising sign. And you put that in the first house. And then you follow the other signs in their order till you fill up that chart. That's how you make up your chart. Now, but see, this is what you call a house cup. So there we got Leo ruling that house cups, that first house. And then, of course, you got Virgo after that ruling the second house. You got Libra ruling the third house. You see, on around. So when you don't have planets in those houses, it still flavors those areas. In other words, that energy is still activated. You know, it can still be activated by a planet in relationship, just like I demonstrated here. So it's not focusing on a certain planet, but it still is flavoring that part of your life with that energy. See, so it still has an effect.
This is an aside.
Oh, okay.
Nothing about astrology.
Oh, okay.
Something about Willie Lynch.
Oh, okay. Well, we that came into our discussion.
We're in Gemini now, right?
We're in Gemini. It just moved into Gemini, out of Taurus. You know, and we had that big planetary alignment in Taurus. And like I said, because we are in a redevelopment phase or a crucifixion stage, that means we're redefining everything now. You know, from a physical to a spiritual level. And so when the energy was in that lineup of Taurus and all those planets were lined up in Taurus, see, that demonstrated a redefinition of what we value, you know, in all the areas that the planets, you know, wherever the planets indicate. So the sun just moved out of Taurus when we were redefining our values. This was supposed to be y'all's homework assignment. And then it moved into the sign of Gemini, which is the sign of understanding. So what I was trying to get you to do is tell me, from redefining your values in Taurus, what type of understanding are you seeing coming up in this Gemini energy now?
He last night.
Oh, okay, give it to me.
Well, brother of 10, first of all, is anybody in here over 53 years old?
Oh, 53.
May I have permission to speak? Thank you. I was in the chat room last night. Some brother from New York, of course, was looking for a threesome. He was looking for, and I got to put the word up here. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. He was looking for another woman, but the woman had to be
bisexual.
okay. Well, I'm looking at this Willie Lynch stuff. Brother Tim hit me with this about a year ago, and the Valentine was here. It really knocked me in the head. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. The movie Malcolm X, first place they took him was through the dictionary. So I saw this word last night in the chat room. I'm saying, whoa. So I said, wait a minute, bisexual. Of course, I had to look up sex. You'd be surprised what that tells you. You'll be having it all the time. Because I'm the male sex, she's the female sex. Okay? It has nothing to do with procreation.
Okay.
Nothing. Okay? Bisexual, that's a hermaphrodite.
Huh.
What?
Bi means two. Sex means I'm male, you a female. So if you're bisexual, you're a hermaphrodite. So I asked him, you're looking for a hermaphrodite? Of course, the brother didn't like it, but I asked the question, number one. So he went off on me. So I said, man, look in your dictionary, look up sex. And you should know that bi means two. It's a hermaphrodite. So they lied to us again. They say that this is a person who likes both ways.
Yeah.
You know, but see, sex has nothing to do with procreation. Nothing. Look in your dictionary when you get home, look up sex. I'm the male sex, she's the female sex. Okay? But if you go to your Bible, there was doing a whole lot of begetting in the Bible. Okay? So do you understand what I'm getting at here? Okay? This has nothing to do with homosexuality. And plenty of people have told you there's no sex between homosexuals. That's mutual masturbation. Okay? So they did it to us again. We weren't aware. We're not paying attention. But last night, she said that energy move. I said, wait a minute. She heard her today.
Right.
Because the word, it hit me. Well, Spirit said, hey, take a look at that word. And I went to the dictionary and looked up.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Well, I just look up entertainment.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So they lied to us.
I'm happy
They
you
act
dropped that out there, man.
what's his name? Brother came here. Culture Bandits. Dale Jones said, I don't want to say this for the ladies. They done messed up. Okay? Yeah, well, they did. Because that word comes from an ancient ritual of planting crops in the ground. That's in the ground. This is a stick, put a hole in the ground. You drop in the seeds and cover the dirt. Let the dirt up the seeds. You know what that is called? I don't want to say it out loud because it's become a bad word. Okay? That's what that is. Planting seeds in the ground. It's using a stick, put the seed in the ground, cover up the seed. That's what that practice ritual is called, for planting crops. So they blow our minds. We don't know the language.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Because every time I tell somebody something I'm on, where you get that from? So where do you get that from?
Where did I get what from?
That information about
This right here?
Yeah.
This I first heard this from Dr. White about 9 years ago. I got a tape we were looking at. It's about the elder. It's called the Elder Brothers Warning. There's some people living in the Sierra Madres, look like us, got straight black hair. They've been up there way before Cristobal Colon and Hernando, what's his name? De Soto came over here. And they live up in these mountains looking down on all these modern cities. They never come down out these mountains. So they invited the BBC over here, over there. And they took, there was a warning that, hey, look, y'all blowing it. Y'all are not taking care of the earth. The earth is your mother.
That's right.
Okay? It used to snow up here in the wintertime. And then when the snow melts in the summertime, we have fresh drinking water. It don't do that no more. What y'all doing? Y'all ain't taking care of the earth. And in that video, you'll see this woman plant the seeds, dirt back over. And that's what Dr. White was trying to tell me. And if you understand it, you put the seeds in Mother Earth. Okay. Isn't that what's happening? But they made it a bad word.
Right. They have reversed everything.
Reversed it. Okay.
Wow. And now we're coming to some spiritual understanding, because this is what that energy of Gemini represents. So right now is the time to access, understanding, spiritual understanding. See?
Thank you for letting me speak.
We thank you for that contribution. So, because it definitely demonstrates, what we're talking about. See, understanding, and a lot of that is going to be going on now. Take advantage of that sun, because the sun represents the focus, represents what's being highlighted. Wherever you see the sun, that's what's being focused on. So right now, the sun, that energy, is focusing on us coming to an understanding.
But they keep telling us to stay out of the sun.
Telling who to stay out of the sun?
They were like, make sure
they who?
rays and...
No, but excuse me, they who?
They them?
They, where do you get this information? Where do you get this information
All the
from?
news and all. I mean, you can see how
do the sun. Do we have a black TV radio stations putting out information for black people?
Well, they say something different.
No, that's for
and remember this, and what did I say? Whatever they tell you, you do just the opposite.
That's right.
Because they're feeding you that because they want you to, they're trying to direct.
Within reason. Because they also, they play tricks.
They the trickery, master of trickery. But if they say stay out of the sun, then I would be going trying to find all the sun I could.
Well, you know what? Because they told me that I have multiple sclerosis, right? And the first thing they told me was stay out of the heat, don't take hot, and I love hot baths, and stay out of the sun. Because every summer, you can ask my daughter, I sit in the sun because I want to get a tan. They think I'm crazy. But I know that multiple sclerosis is a disease that affects mostly them. Well, now it's getting us, but it started out being them. So of course they couldn't sit out in the sun. But they still keep saying, don't sit in the sun, don't sit in the sun, don't sit in the sun.
That's their primary diagnosis. That's what they tell.
Right.
That's what they tell any patient.
Right, right. Dr.
But all that's geared for them, not
them.
for us.
Dr. Mpufu, I think I got that right.
Joe Pukrum?
Yes, Pukrum. That's right. That's right. Pukrum.
Yes.
Okay, she gets into that. I have a tape where she talks about that. She talks about the hospitals that are geared for them. It's not geared for us. She talks about if you, she used an analogy of a dress store. If you go to a dress store that says we only sell size 9 and you wear a size 16, you want to go in that store. You understand that you're going in there regardless of the fact that they're serving only size 9. This is the analogy she made between the dress store and the hospital. You know, they're not for us. You know, she said that, you know, she researched and found out that the truth of this, of course, is not being exposed. But, you know, none of that is geared for us.
Yeah, well, if you listen to Laila, or Africa, and the rest of you, just listen to them, they'll tell you. We brought a brother in here, they're talking about how they make scamming us with money. Brother spoke here. They told us all that. It's a racket. It's a racket. AIDS is a racket. AIDS is an industry. Cancer is an industry.
Absolutely.
There's more people making money off the disease than got the disease.
Absolutely.
They had a show on TV on Wednesday, and there was this lady who supposedly had come up with the cure for cancer, and they wanted to kill her. And they said, do you realize
the cure for cancer is right down here in your local health food store.
Yeah, well, I know that now.
And
but they said that would
right inside your mind.
They said that would mess up all the pharmaceutical companies and medical.
So it would destroy industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you at the gathering of the masters? What did Laila tell you? It's come back.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Just like they said,
did you hear the news today?
From AIDS.
Yeah.
No.
There was a E. coli outbreak in Canada.
And they found out that he got
really?
It was drinking water.
Oh, come on.
An E. coli outbreak.
And see, and that's one of the reasons I first started doubting, you know, this AIDS thing, because they were like, all of a sudden it was no longer a gay thing, you know, it's a black thing now. You know, a #1 killer.
Yeah, when it first came out, it was called.
Oh, I just read today I just put it in the diary. The AIDS they're going by how many countries? So this is 16 million people have been killed by AIDS, died by AIDS, and guess who's #1?
Black people.
That's in Africa.
Africa.
When it first came out, it was anally inserted death syndrome. Remember? You remember that?
And as Dr. Valentine says, you know, as soon as they put it in your head that you're sick, that's when you become
and you
sick.
believe it.
And
you believe it.
Said that
that's when you become
sick. He has
sick.
a tape I called the fear, the words that cause disease. And when you say cancer, me. And then it just goes
I got
here.
You start producing those symptoms.
The wicked part of your body, and you manufacture.
That's absolutely do.
So there's basically no such thing
Power
as
words
AIDS.
to cause disease.
Say again?
There's no such thing as AIDS.
There's no such thing as a virus. Don't exist.
Yeah.
Dr. Sadie proved that in New York when they made him take his ad out of the newspaper. Because he said he cured everything. And they tried to get him to take that ad. He didn't. So they put him in jail. He had to go to Superior Court. And he proved right in front of that federal judge, using their expert witnesses, it's a virus. And they couldn't explain it. So it doesn't exist. It doesn't.
And you know, and that's why, you know, they want us to do all these inoculations and all that kind of stuff.
That's when you get what it is.
Yeah, that's when they're giving it.
When they give it.
That's when they, you know, you don't know the devastating effects it's had on our children, on us, you know, taking those things.
But there's an old Masonic saying that says that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Some of them babies got to go.